He asked me if you were a bad friend.
I'm so nervous, but it's okay. It is okay. This has been a really intense and long process, guys. Okay. Good morning, guys! So today's video is about me going through the process of an autism evaluation for myself. I've already had like a pre-intake just to see if it was appropriate. Now they're going to decide which assessments would be best for me. Today we are doing a telehealth intake. It's going to be over the phone and she's just going to ask me a lot of questions. I'm going to go over this again, so I might repeat some information, but I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was a young girl, when I was like 6. Then when I was 25, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. However, since then I've come in contact with a few doctors who don't agree with my diagnosis. They feel like I don't meet the typical bipolar patient. Combined with the fact that I have 4 autistic kids, we have this chromosomal abnormality. Looking back at some of my childhood traits that my kids now have, I'm realizing that a lot of my stuff, it's more of like spectrum stuff, but that doesn't mean I'm on the spectrum. I may just be a different type of patient. I don't know. I'm kind of excited. I'm excited to bring you guys along on this journey. I wish someone else would have done this on YouTube, because I'm like, what is even the process for an adult? The traits and signs of autism present so differently in kids. So I'm about to have the appointment, but after the appointment, I will sit down and kind of talk to you guys about the process, how I got started, and any tips that I might have for other people who are adults wanting to get evaluations as well. So this is the second step of our process. Every process will look different. As I said, I had a phone kind of like pre-assessment where they just kind of like find out like, why do you want this done, and make sure that it's warranted. Now I'm kind of nervous.
Hi, Stephanie, can you hear both of us?
Yes, I can.
To fill out so that we can get a better idea of any bipolar symptoms that might be there, even though, yeah, that's not sounding like the case, but we definitely want to make sure we explore that.
Many minutes later.
So that was a little bit more in depth than I thought it was going to be, but I like that. I like that they're covering so much. So basically, she just asked me a lot of questions about my childhood, how it affects me as an adult. The end result is that they are going to put in some assessments for me for an adult autism assessment, ADHD. There's also a bipolar one as well that she's going to kind of include, but she wants to do it to rule it out, if that makes sense. And then they're also including an assessment for PTSD, because apparently I need that. So I'm just being honest. I'm just being real. This is going to be a lot me being really vulnerable, so please be nice in the comments. As much as I want to break the stigma on autism, I also want to break the stigma on mental health. I've talked about the fact that I didn't have a perfect childhood, and that's not my fault. I had things happen that I need to work on, and I'm going to be starting therapy too, so yay! I'm going to go eat, kind of relax, and kind of, I don't know, process everything that just happened, because it was a pretty intense appointment. I had to talk about a lot of things. I was like, oh, okay. I'll be back and I will talk to you guys on how I started this process and kind of how it went for me, and some tips on how it could help you. I'm feeling better, but I wanted to talk to you guys because I don't know when the next part of this video will be. I will be dating it for anyone that kind of wants a reference for like timelines and things like that. Kid evaluations and adult evaluations are so different. I will give you my best tips on what I think is the best way to start this process if you're an adult. So the first step is going to make sure that your insurance covers it, because it's going to be very important for you to know if this is a covered assessment that they will pay for. And if it is covered, how much do they pay? Is there a certain percentage? Do you have a copay? That kind of thing. But then if they're not going to pay it, that's good to know, so you know that you're self-pay, just because then you can make that decision if it's something that you can and want to pay for, kind of thing. I absolutely am aware of the fact how amazing of a privilege it is to live where I live and to be able to get an evaluation. I am very lucky that our insurance does cover it, and I realize what a privilege that is, but not everyone does. So once you found that out, then you will of course look accordingly. I encourage this a lot, but if you can join a local like special needs or autism group for your specific area, that helps a lot. Not every area has a wonderful group. Like, I never really had a good group when I lived in Florida, but here in Colorado, we have amazing groups. I'm actually a part of a few of them. Be like, hey, looking for an adult evaluation. This is my insurance. Does anyone have any suggestions or recommendations, kind of thing? And that really helps you get a good grasp on like places that would be the best for you. If that doesn't work out, if you don't have that option, then I would of course Google it. I would just Google adult autism evaluation. A lot of psych clinics here do it. I honestly don't think I would have been able to get this done in Florida, just being completely honest. For some areas and states, it's not as easy to get an adult evaluation. You don't want just anyone. You don't want just any psychologist. You want people and doctors that are experienced in evaluating and diagnosing adults. The signs are going to look completely different. Usually by the time you're an adult, if you're not diagnosed yet, then you're really good at masking. You're really good at just pretending to go about life as a typical person, right? So it's a lot harder for someone to pinpoint XYZ. I will tell you, this is actually a very interesting story, but when I got the boys evaluated in Florida, the psychologist there said that she had no doubt that I wasn't on the spectrum. Like, I didn't even ask, I didn't bring it up. It wasn't really something I talked about ever with anyone. And she's like, I can just tell it, if it is genetic, it has to be from the dad. I'm not mad at her about that. Like, that's not why I was there. When I'm taking care of my kids' stuff, I'm on top of it. That just kind of goes to show you that if you've made it to this point, you've done a really good job at hiding it, in a sense. That's basically what we've been doing. So you want professionals and doctors and all of that to be aware of what these signs look like in adults. It's so easy to be misdiagnosed. So easy. If you can't find it by Google, I would just find some autism clinics that might present for children and just call them and ask. Like the clinic I'm going through, they evaluate for kids primarily, but they also evaluate for adults. I knew our insurance here was going to pay for the evaluation. Colorado's been amazing, so I knew that that was not an issue, but I wanted to go to the right clinic. I wanted to go to somewhere that was familiar with not just diagnosing adults, but also diagnosing female adults. Autism can present differently in females that are older. I think it's just because we're really good at pretending. I talk about this a lot, like on stream and stuff, because I can have crazy things going on and then I can get on stream and act like nothing's going on. The place I went through, a lot of people suggested it. They said they had an amazing experience either with themselves as adults or with their kids. A lot of females that were like in their 30s, 40s, 50s were saying that this place was able to evaluate and diagnose them. I reached out to them one night when I was watching the autism side of TikTok. And the more I watched it, the more I was like, oh my God, this is me. And so it kind of made me just want to push myself to go ahead and just make that first step. I feel like the first step is always the hardest step. So it really pushed me because this was after we found out that the genetic results, our kids that are on the spectrum have all had genetic testing, and it shows that they have chromosomal abnormalities that's linked to autism and things like that. And so I found out that I'm actually a carrier of both of those abnormalities. So after just things kind of lining up, I feel like I was just at this place where I was ready to find out. Like I was ready to kind of dig into it and find more about myself. But I wanted a full neuropsych evaluation because when I was a young kid, I was diagnosed with ADHD. When I was 25, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And then I would go see psychiatrists and they'd like doubt my diagnosis. And so it's just been a very confusing place for me. They contacted me and kind of did like a pre-intake. I don't know if I already talked about this. I'm sorry if this is a repeat, but they basically called me to figure out like what exactly is going on, what makes me think that I might need an evaluation for autism. If you are wanting to know like what prompted me really like why I'm deciding to do this evaluation, go to see that video. I have no regrets. I don't know. It's exciting to know that I'm going to be able to understand myself a lot better. So I'm ready for it. My mom has to do some questionnaires. I start therapy next week. That is that.
So today is October 27th. So it's been a couple weeks since my
intake and all of that. Now, this is how my evaluation process is going. It might be different for everyone, but for us, they needed someone that was close to me, presently close, like knows me now, to do like an assessment part, I guess, to kind of get an idea of what I'm like from like a different point of view. Usually it's like a parent or something like that, but I don't get to spend much time with my family. Even when we lived in Florida, we didn't see them a whole bunch. So clearly my family wouldn't be appropriate for this. So Lonnie is the chosen person because, of course, we've been married for almost 17 years, so we know each other very, very well. So he's just doing an assessment. It's over the phone. I don't even know what they're going to ask. I don't know if he'll be willing to, like, kind of share what they wanted to know and kind of give an idea of the questions. I'm not going to ask his answers if he doesn't want to give them to me. I'm letting him do it. I'm so sorry, that is so loud. But I'm letting him do it in privacy because I want him to feel completely comfortable saying whatever he feels about me without worrying about like hurting my feelings or something like that. And then next Friday, Thursday and Friday are my evaluations. I don't know what I've recorded, I keep forgetting, but my evaluations are next week. They're splitting it up into 2 days, and I'll kind of explain more once we cross that bridge, but be back in a minute.
Many minutes later.
So Lonnie is done with his assessment about me. You don't have to give any answers that you gave that you're not comfortable with giving.
Let's just say, like, some of the questions that he asked, I was embarrassed to answer. Okay? When I called him, I said, okay, I'm here to tell you about all my wife's bad habits. And he's like, he laughed. He says, well, we don't really call them bad habits. They're behaviors. How you clean up after yourself, like hygiene, how you take care of your surroundings and things like that. So it was like almost like I was like telling on my wife.
And this is something I found out from therapy and stuff like that, is like how I respond to things has a lot to do with it.
He asked me if you're a bad friend. And I said, sometimes.
Sometimes I am. I feel like that's natural though, because like on my intake, I remember like they would ask me questions. I wanted to say what I knew was the socially appropriate answer, what I should do or how I should feel. But instead I was like, no, Stephanie, like you have to answer like honestly, or they're not going to be able to like do this honestly. So it's definitely weird when you've spent most of your life like trying to be socially appropriate and then like being like, oh no, it's okay for you to be completely you for this evaluation. I'm like, Banana? Guys, look how cute she looks. Look at those sleeves. Look at her feet. Liam. Look. He's like, I'm not a monkey, Mom.
1 + 1 + 2 is 4.
What are you doing? All right, guys, we are on day 2 of my evaluations. I really didn't vlog a whole bunch, but this is kind of how yesterday went. Whew. Guys, this week has been by so fast that I really haven't had a chance to have a lot of feelings about this appointment, but I'm so nervous. I don't know if today's my autism evaluation or they're doing the other parts of it, but I'm so nervous, but it's okay. It is okay. I'm gonna go in there. Where's my mask? It's right here. I got this. I can absolutely rock this. Let's go. So this is the longer day. It's gonna be like 2.5 hours. So trying to get there. I'm running behind. I hate being late. I'm just trying to push through. So we're gonna get this done and then I will talk to you guys about everything and how everything has went. I was going to do this where the end of this vlog was going to be the results, but it's already going to be too long. I mean, at this point, you can see how long the video is. It would have just been too long. So you guys will get a separate video with the results and a Q&A I'm going to do. So there's that.
Many hours later.
I'm done. So they have to do a intake with my mom, basically, to get a developmental history of me. So they're going to be doing that. And then it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks before I find out the results, just because of the holidays, they said. So I won't even know until the middle of December. That's why I decided to go ahead and just start like slowly posting these videos anyway, just because, I don't know, it would be forever before you guys get the actual video. So I'm going to just quickly kind of talk about my experience with it and kind of what I went through. So if other adults are kind of wondering what it looks like, this is what it looked like for me. Now take into account that they weren't just doing an autism evaluation, they were doing a full neuropsych evaluation. And yeah, so the first day, nothing really stood out to me. It was like your normal get to know you, asking questions. She'd ask me questions like, what does it feel like when you're happy? What does it feel like when you're angry? That kind of thing. And then she asked me a couple tough questions I didn't know how to answer, like, how do you know when someone's your friend? What's the difference between a friend and a coworker, a friend and a person you go to school with? How do you know the difference, kind of thing? So those were a little bit tough for me because I really didn't know how to answer that. But she also did a couple weird things, like we did a little puzzle, and then she had me read her a wordless book. So basically it was just pictures and I had to tell a story about it. So that was kind of strange. And then at the end, she had this bag full of like random stuff and I had to pick 5 items and like tell a story about it. And that was the hardest thing for me because I don't know, the things just didn't look like anything it could represent. And so I just don't have a big enough imagination for that. And it actually caused me a lot of anxiety over it because I'm just like, this doesn't make sense. Like this doesn't look like what it should look like, I guess. So that was yesterday's visit, and she had me fill out like this sensory paper of like what bothers me, what doesn't, kind of thing. It's very, very long, and I'll go over that probably when I do my traits video. Today was a whole bunch of paperwork. Like the first one was a mental illness thing. And it had 175 questions on it. And I mean, some of the questions were really concerning, but I know that it's not just to screen for bipolar, it's to screen for any mental illness or disorder. But I was like, oh, okay. But we also did a social one, a social questionnaire that had like 60. Then I did an ADHD screener and it was like, very often, very often, very often, very often, very often, very often. Oh, and then we also did a PTSD screener as well. And then they had me do 2 different activities that was very, very strange. But basically, you had this piece of paper, you had to listen to this really monotone, boring guy say nonsense words. Like they aren't words that made sense. It was like yeeb or something like that. And he would say a set of 4 words and you had to select the word you think he says, which makes sense because I have a lot of issues with like language and things like that. That's why when I say mill, it sounds like mill, like M-I-L-L, because I don't tell the difference when people are saying it, so I say it like that. But we did that, and then we did another one where you had to listen to a series of beeps and tell them if it was the same or different. It was strange. But I understand why they're doing it. So they have to do the interview with my mom, and then they'll have all of the information and they can screen me. And after all of this, whatever they say about me, I feel very confident in it because this has been a really intense and long process, guys. Okay. So far, we've had the pre-intake. We've had the actual intake, which was 2 hours. Lonnie had an hour assessment about myself as well. I've had 3 to 4 hours at this point, and then my mom's gonna have an hour assessment. So this took a lot longer than I thought it was going to, and my mom had the assessment for me yesterday over the phone, so I thought I would. She didn't go into everything because I was on my way to run errands and things like that, but she did tell me that it was kind of stressful. She's like, I don't know how you sit through like hours of this, but basically they just wanted to know kind of my developmental history, which was completely common, but then like, how many friends did I have? Was I a very social person? Was there anything odd that I did? Did I STEM as a child? They didn't say STEM, but basically what she told me was they were asking if I was STEMing, my special interests. I feel like if you've ever had a child that's being evaluated, and a lot of people who have said that they want to get evaluated is because now they have a child in the spectrum and they're really realizing a lot of the traits of their child also describe themselves as well. So if you went through a child evaluation, it's really similar to that. If one of your parents have to kind of screen you, it's harder the older you are, just because I'm 34. Like my mom's having to recall things from when I was 7 or 8. But there are a lot of things that stuck out to her just because I was kind of a weird kid, a strange cringe kid. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just was. I wasn't your typical child anyway. I really didn't have many friends. Anytime I hung out with any kids, it was always with my sister. It wasn't till I was like 14 before I had like my first like friend. She just had to answer a lot of social questions, a lot of communication questions and things like that if I pointed and other stuff. Regardless of what the results are, I will be doing kind of the traits of autism I share, because even if I'm not on the spectrum, the traits were prominent enough to warrant an evaluation, so I feel it could help others out there. Today is November 12th. So we have about a month before I find out the results. So go back to past Stephanie now. So that is it. This is going to conclude the vlog because I have a lot of things to do, so I don't think I'm going to vlog later. If you're new here, hit that red subscribe button. We will see you guys next time.
Where you move make me blind. You will always be there. There's no doubt in my mind. You will always be there.